Good morning and welcome to the Point. This week you have heard a lot about recounts in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and even here in Michigan. You've also heard a lot about the legal wrangling surrounding that, but here's what you may not have heard. Even the Jill Stein people who are pushing this recount say they don't expect any recounts, if they even happen, will change the outcome of the presidential race. They say that's not even their point. The point is, they say they want to guarantee voter security. In any event, as we move forward, one of the things we know for sure in Lansing, there will be a lot of new faces when we start governing in Michigan again next year. This morning, we'll start the process of introducing you to some of those new lawmakers, starting with the new Democrat who will be representing Muskegon from the 72nd District. Give me your take on what you would like to do when you get to Lansing.
Well, it is a big transition. There's a lot of different things going on, and but one of the things that's big for me is just starting to build those relationships. You know, with term limits, you have such a short amount of time to be there, and let's face it, it's only a 2-year term that I'm on. So to me, building relationships and finding out what's really going on in Lansing and how Lansing works is going to be a priority.
The upside is that we are now far enough into term limits that everybody there understands what a short term they have, and so that process may be a little easier. But in years past, you had maybe a few terms to make those kind of relationships. Now you've got a few weeks if you really want to do something, and compounding for you, you will serve in the minority, which doesn't always get the prerogative to set the agenda, so you need to reach across the aisle as well. Have you had any opportunity? I know you've been through orientation, or I assume you've been through orientation.
I have.
And did you meet some of your fellow reps both sides of the aisle?
You know, I have, and but you're right. I mean, the time goes by so fast, and working in the minority is going to be very difficult. To try to get any of my own agenda done, or that of some of my fellow Democrats. But again, it goes back to those relationships, and you've got a short time, and it's the time is now. But you know what? Even in my work as a county commissioner, I've really had the opportunity to reach across the aisle, if you will, to work with people of all different backgrounds, political preferences, and I think I've had success there as a county commissioner, and then eventually as the chair of the county board in Muskegon. So I'm looking forward to the challenge moving forward.
Your fellow representative from Muskegon County is Republican, Holly Hughes, got returned to office, but there may be an advantage there, and I can't help but notice your button that says Watch Us Go, which is about Muskegon. There's been a real concentration of what appears to be positive energy in Muskegon, with different things happening and people trying to get things started. And I know that Representative Hughes has been interested in that. Clearly you're interested in that. So it is the potential for a little bipartisan activity to perhaps help an area that is already on the upswing.
Yeah, that's correct, and I just think that's so important moving forward. Let's face it. I mean, the Democrats are in the minority, which means that we're definitely at an uphill battle. Bottom line is we have to work together. I don't care who is in the minority, who's in the majority. We have to work together, and I think that's extremely important for Muskegon and the advances that have happened there over the last several years, and then moving forward with the future of what's going to happen. We've got to come together and figure out ways that we can collaborate our interests for the betterment of everybody.
We are not separated by that many miles, but a lot of people that are watching this morning may have not been to Muskegon recently. I was out most recently, I think, just prior to the big job fair out at the LST. But talk to me a little bit about some of the things that are going on there that you see as positives, because the landscape has changed. There have been a lot of things that have changed there.
There sure has. There's been a renewed energy in bringing back the downtown area of Muskegon, which I think is very important. That's an area that I'm going to represent in Lansing. To make Muskegon a destination and a place to go. And I think that we've made big advances there in the last few years in doing just that, with our accommodation tax dollars on the rise annually. People are wanting to come to Muskegon to see what's going on and to take in some of the museums and the different attractions that we have. And I think the accommodations tax is a good way to judge just what's going on. But also with the port development. I know that's been a hot topic as of late in regards to how we are going to move forward with that, but nonetheless, we have to work together to continue some of those advances.
And when you talk about that downtown area, if people haven't been there, there's a a huge farmers market at one area, and a number of restaurants and entertainment centers that have been in other places. So you really do see a certain vibrance that has been injected into the community. What do you as a state representative need to do in Lansing to help promote that and keep that going?
Well, exactly, just what you said, promote it. I want to make sure that people across the state understand what's happening on the west side and in Muskegon. We've got a lot of good things going on, and it's amazing to me in some of the short time that I've had in working with some of my, what will be future legislators, is that they really don't even know what is happening in Muskegon, and I think that's it's a time for me to be able to blow Muskegon's horn and say, hey, look at us over here. Don't forget us here on the west side.
If the economy continues, albeit somewhat slowly sometimes, to improve, what do you think Muskegon looks like as you move down the road? What would your hope be for Muskegon in 10 years?
Well, I look for it to be a vibrant community and a community for all, not just for one political party or for one part of Muskegon. We've got to do better, and we are going to do better. But I really do see, people flooding there to see what's going on and to visit some of the museums, the attractions for entertainment that we have, and I think that is already happening. But I think it's just going to continue to get bigger and bigger.
For a state representative, making sure that you represent the local home area is job number one. But beyond that, I'm sure you have things you'd like to see, perhaps that are more statewide in scope. What are some of the issues that draw you to want to be in the legislature, and things that you'll be trying to work with your colleagues on beyond just those things that help in Muskegon?
Well, I think jobs is number one. We've really got to look at how we can attract more businesses, not only to Muskegon but also to Michigan as well. I think that's an area that we're seeing a deficiency in, but also with even from the environmental aspect. I mean, just my past as a county commissioner, talking about the issue of plastic bags and preserving our environment is a priority, and making sure everybody's got a seat at the table, that no one's treated unfairly. I think if anything, we have to be a voice for those people and for those interests, and that's one thing that I will be. I can assure you of that.
In your orientation, I know you haven't taken the office yet, but was there anything that surprised you beyond what you might expect? Because at once, the operation in Lansing is pretty smooth, pretty straightforward, but it's still a pretty steep learning curve. Any surprises for you yet in the early going?
Not really. Nothing to really speak of. I am amazed at how some of these interests that Muskegon has, as far as what's going on in our state, how those interests are really not just in Muskegon; they're really all over the state. Maybe some people will lead you to believe that things are going great in Michigan. I don't believe that, and I've certainly talked to some others in Lansing as well that don't believe that either. And that's something that we're going to have to work on together and strengthen that the across the aisle attitude.
Due to term limits, every 2 years, about a third of the House members are turned out. They can only serve for 6 years. Such was the case for Marcia Hovey-Wright that Sabo replaces, and the same for Ken Yonker. Yonker was in the 72nd District. That's part of Allegan and Kent County. The person who replaces him is Stephen Johnson. I'll start with congratulations. You've won your election. Now you're on your way to Lansing. I know you've been through orientation. Tell me what it is that you want to do now that you are a representative-elect.
A couple different priorities. The overall arching theme is less government. Let's get government out of our ways. Let's give people more freedom. A couple different instances is no-fault insurance reform. Right now, we're the only state with unlimited no-fault. We pay twice the national average. We'd like to fix that, give people more freedom, let the free market work itself out. Also, energy policy. Let's get rid of the monopolies of consumers and DTE. Let's give people the opportunity to purchase from an energy provider that they choose. But really, number of issues is just freedom. Let's give people more control.
As we speak, an energy bill has already been passed by the Senate that does not provide for the kind of choice that some people would like to have. It is likely to be changed by the House. It's been passed out of the Senate, if I misspoke, and it's likely to be changed by the House. And it may be changed yet again at the federal level because of the interpretations of energy policy in Washington that may change with a new administration. So that's a very complex, big issue. They've been working on this particular incarnation for the better part of 24 months and trying to come up with something. How do you cut through the things you just talked about and still remain reliability? Because, I mean, one of the things that people talk about is the first thing you want to do is make sure every time you turn on the switch, the lights come on.
Right. Well, and that's where, to me, I think the free market works best. If you look at what works better at supplying or meeting a demand that people have, government or the free market wins every time. So when it comes to reliability, I think it's best to move away from monopolies and give people those options. Yes, right now the House is considering that bill. Major legislation like this should not be handled in lame duck. It should be before the election, especially with the difference at the national level with Trump taking over. Definitely something that Republicans should hold on to and wait until after the new legislature comes in.
Well, as we talk, that's where we are. By the time this airs, that may have changed, but in any event, my guess is you'll get a chance to take a swing at energy policy, because I don't think it'll be completely done before you take office in January. Let's talk a little bit about auto no fault. That's another one of those issues that has been talked about in Lansing for a very long time, but it's hard to get traction on it, partially because there are a group of people that say, wait a minute, yeah, we pay, but we also have one in the nation kind of long-term catastrophic care coverage for people, and there are people who are already covered by that, so in some form they would almost necessarily have to be grandfathered in, I assume. I don't know what your plan would be. So how would you change auto no fault and still try to remain true, at least to the promises that were made to people up to this point?
I'm not sure of the specific plan at this point, but I think all options need to be on the table. We are the only state that does that, and it's not working. Our insurance rates are way higher than everyone else. The other states, what they're doing is working better than here. So let's look around, let's see what state is doing it the best, and let's try to see if we can match what they're doing.
Let's talk a little bit about the district that you represent beyond those two overarching issues. Are there specific issues within your district that you want to deal with?
Pro-life issues. It's a very pro-life district. We need to work on defunding Planned Parenthood, making sure taxpayer dollars don't go towards abortion providers. And then the corporate or cronyism that you see with like the MEDC, I think we need to eliminate that. Let's do low tax rates for everyone instead of picking winners and losers.
When you talk about MEDC, for example, there is a program that certainly has its share of detractors, but you will also have people tell you, this is what we've done. This is how we have been able to develop this many jobs, or this part of this industry, or whatever it is that they believe that they have invested wisely in. Is it your consideration that government shouldn't be involved in that at all?
No, government shouldn't be involved. And if you look at different economic studies done by like the Mackinac Center, it shows we're losing money on those investments. And honestly, why is the government involved in deciding what industry should be moving forward in Michigan? Instead, let's do across the board low tax cuts, and let's let the free market work out. Whatever industry is best, they'll rise to the top and they'll succeed.
Well, the idea of free market, as you just described it, works unless there are 49 other states that are not playing by the same rules, because each of them are offering incentives for businesses to come there. How does Michigan compete in a circumstance where we would be, in that case, the only state not offering incentives?
In order to offer an incentive, you have to tax another company. So we're de-incentivizing other places. So I think we can compete, and you can compete on regulatory reform as well. Let's make it the best state on low taxes, less regulations, and I think naturally over time we will outperform other states.
When you talk about less regulations, I hear that a lot, particularly from people in the Republican Party. What regulations specifically would you like to get rid of that are Michigan regulations? I know they're at the federal level, it's a different circumstance, but at the state level.
There's a number of them. You look at from the medical field, you have certificate of need. In order for a hospital to put another bed in their hospital, they have to get approval from Lansing. Well, let's get away from that. I mean, hospitals should be able to build if they want to. They shouldn't need a bureaucrat to give them permission. There's stuff like that all across the board. So I don't have maybe a top 10 list, but we're going to go through, we're going to look through all different kinds of regulations, and let's see, are they still necessary, and if not, let's get rid of them, and then let's start putting sunset rules on the new ones that come in, that they have to be revoted, repassed maybe 10 years down the road.
What is your take after spending a couple of days in Lansing with your future colleagues, both Republicans and Democrats? You had a class of 40 some odd, 30 some odd over there?
Yeah, I think we have a good class coming forward. I think we have a lot of very conservative members. I think we can do some good change at the state level. I've heard a lot of people talking about reducing the size of government, maybe going after taxes, trying to reduce those. So I am optimistic, but very cautiously optimistic, because a lot of times people change after they get elected.
In the minute or so that we have left, I'm also, when it We talked about regulation. I'm always interested in reducing the size of government. What part of government do you want to reduce?
Well, I've already talked about the MEDC. There's one part that we can get rid of. Prevailing wage requirements is another part. There are multiple new programs that we have. If you look at where our budget is now compared to Jennifer Granholm, we're spending $10 billion a year more than then. Granholm was no fiscal conservative. Let's get back to those spending levels.
If you went back to those spending levels, what would government look like? I mean, the MEDC is not going to make it up. If you get rid of them, that's not going to make up $10 billion.
Right, government's going to be a lot smaller. It's going to have a lot smaller impact on our daily lives, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing to let people have more freedom over their lives, less government programs. Let's get things back to the free market, back to individual liberty.
When you look at what has been done in the 6 years since the Granholm administration, do you think that this governor and this Republican administration have spent too much money, and can you identify, other than MEDC, where?
I think so. If you look at the roads package, the voters said 80 to 20, we don't want you to raise our taxes, and what they do, they turned around and raised taxes anyways. They've done some good things with right to work, eliminating the Michigan business tax, but they have spent, they have increased spending, and so I think we need to look at where they increase it, and let's go back.
Still, another new member of the House when we come back to The Point. Welcome back to The Point. In the election of 2016, there were a number of new House members elected, including in the 77th District. That's where Tom Hooker was term limited, and Tommy Brand takes his place. You have been successful, and the question though is, what's next? You start drinking out of the fire hose that they have over there in Lansing. There's a lot to learn. You've gone through orientation.
Yes.
What is your takeaway as you met some of your future colleagues in the past few days?
Well, everybody's really nice. I was sitting at one table. I was the only Republican at the table, and we just got along good. I think that's overblown as far as people not getting along together in Lansing. Hopefully it is, because we had a good day.
Well, the interesting part of that is there are two sides to that, as you know.
Sure.
Getting along with people who are your colleagues and coming to a consensus when it comes time to vote, but we'll wait and see how that works out as we move on down the road. What is it that you want to achieve now that you've been elected?
Well, first of all, I'm a good listener too, so I get along with the colleagues on both sides. I own a small business. I own a restaurant, and so I listen to my customers all the time. I want to really get free enterprise and introduce the school systems. I really believe in small business and business in general. We create jobs, and I believe there's some great stories out there, and there's stories about people starting in a garage and starting a business and becoming billionaires, which is nothing wrong with that. And I want the kids to know that they have hope and they can do it. If you really love landscaping, a kid does, they can have his own landscaping company and how to do it. And actually, I'm really excited because Team 21 and Wyoming Godfrey Lee is going to try our course.
Tell me a little bit about the course, because we've talked about it in the past, but this is something that you have developed that may actually be separate from being a state representative, but I know that you're going to incorporate it because this is a curriculum that you developed.
Yes. I worked with Peg Kramer, educator. I paid for it with my own money, and I helped her develop it. And it's a course about free enterprise again, and how to start a business, and some of the obstacles to start, and some of the positive things, and how to achieve your dreams, and that you can do it.
And is this something you're going to try to introduce at the state level?
Yes.
And when you look at something like that, is there a measurement, do you think? Can you look at this and say, well, if we do this over a 10-year period, what do you expect?
I mean, 10 years to get introduced. Well, I expect I'll be 74 then. I mean,
well, no, I meant, what would the outcomes be? I mean, you have to have some expectation.
Yeah, small businesses, a lot of articles I read, entrepreneurship is dying a little bit, and that's not good. It's not good for our country. It's not good for the world. And I expect there's going to be more hope for the kids to start it. I think people don't know that, like a Steve Jobs started in a garage. Phil Knight from Nike, he was selling tennis shoes out of his car, and look where both of them are now. I mean, it can be done, and I want to give them that hope, and I think it will encourage entrepreneurship. I mean, I'm not saying anything's wrong in college, but you don't have to go to college to be a small business owner. I was a C average student, and I didn't go to college. I worked hard, and my dad did help me. But I just want to give the kids hope that they can do it.
That's one component. What about legislatively? Because there's a lot that's going to be on your plate when you get over there in January.
Yes.
We know that the lame duck session will deal with some issues, but there are always lots of issues left over. So what is it that you are particularly interested in from a legislative standpoint?
Well, my restaurant, I'm a blue collar restaurant, and like I ran out of pancake mix last Sunday, so I was going to dollar store to get some, and I saw somebody eating out of a fat man's garbage can, a girl named Kitty, and I brought her over to my restaurant and fed her, and it's not about me, but she had no shoes, she's homelessness. My restaurant will make a lot of my decisions, and I want to attack homelessness, and our speakers want to attack mental issues in the state, and I think they go hand in hand. I mean, this is the United States of America. We shouldn't have homelessness. It's just really sad. If you go down Division Street, you see that. And then I want, again, I have a lot of people I've had work for me. I see these young kids at 18. They come working for me at bus boys. They're smoking. I want to raise smoking age to 21. I mean, you can't drink till you're 21. And it's bad. It's bad for you. And my restaurant, again, will help me make some of my decisions, what I see on the front lines of my restaurant.
When you talk about reducing or eliminating homelessness, that was the stated goal of one of our mayors here in Grand Rapids. And there is nobody in public life that wouldn't like to do something about it. But you also identify that some of this probably ties in with the mental health of some of these folks. How do you approach that from a state level? Because it's obviously something you have to coordinate, and at some point you're going to have people, staff, and money.
I know, exactly, and I believe the taxpayers should keep a lot of their money in their pocket, because I think they invested better in the government. But I really also think there are good people that run nonprofits, and we spend 1.4 billion for colleges, for higher education. I want higher education. I'm not against college, but state spends 1.4 billion. I'd like to take some of that and for nonprofits and expand their beds. We have 16,000 people homeless in Detroit. I mean, that's just not America. It shouldn't be, at least. And I want to look at it that way. And also, I introduced 3 bills already, which is, I mean, they have you introducing bills right away, so it'll start in January. My 3rd bill is, if you get pulled over by a police officer, I want to have you, it's a courtesy, but I want to make a law to put your hands on the steering wheel, put your hands on the dashboard, put your hands on back of the seat, hands on. Because I want a little bit more safety for the police officer. It's a tough job, and go in the car at night, I want to be able to see your hands. And I talked to the police officers, and they say it's a courtesy, but that's a courtesy that should be extended to be a law. I mean, I just got frisked last week in the airport traveling. I didn't take offense to it. You know, I knew they were doing their job.
I want to go back for just a minute.
Sure.
Something you said about higher education and the expense there. I want to play devil's advocate for a minute.
Oh, I hate when my wife does that.
Well, this is an argument you may be able to win, but the cost of college education in Michigan and around the globe, or at least around the country, has gone up dramatically.
I know.
And for parents who are looking to send their kids to school, the last thing they probably want to hear is that the state's going to participate at an even lower level. So taking money out of the higher education budget to do something else with it, while it may be quite valuable, could also be injurious to the economies of thousands of people who are sending kids to school.
Yeah, I guess maybe my business mind I look at colleges as businesses, and they want to keep their market share. I mean, even when we do give them money, they still raise tuition 4%. I maybe a little naive in this. I'll learn more. I'm sure I'll probably learn more what Sundays this is. I'll learn more Monday morning when I get my calls. But that's okay. I'll listen. But I just think that's one avenue I like to look at.
We're back with more To The Point in just a moment. As the weeks continue, we will continue to introduce you to new lawmakers who will represent you in Lansing. And we'll also keep track of a new administration forming in Washington, D.C. There are a lot of changes coming up. We'll keep you apprised on 24-Hour News 8 and every Sunday morning when you join us right here, To The Point.